hello.
Hey Danielle, how are you?
Hi, David. I'm great. What about you?
Doing well today. Thanks for asking.
So, David, you are from Indianapolis, right? Or
Yeah, in this in the States, in the Midwest, Indianapolis, yeah.
okay. Do I remember correctly, or sliced bread was invented there?
I
I
don't
think
I don't know.
heard somewhere somehow. I don't remember when.
I
It's
know.
sliced bread around. I think 1920, something like that. It was invented there.
Interesting. No,
Yeah.
we've been here a while. I haven't heard that one. I'll have to look that up.
So you're not originally from Indianapolis.
No, I'm from a neighboring state, Kentucky. I grew up about 2 hours ish away from here.
Oh,
So
thank you for being here and taking the time to talk
sure.
with me. I appreciate it a
Yeah,
lot.
absolutely.
This is my fourth episode for this
Nice.
podcast. I'm quite new at this.
No, yeah. No, it's great. I'm so happy you started it. The one I started for myself that's been great. One of my favorite activities that I do. So I love it.
Yeah, I saw you have a podcast. It's called the Real You, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, I love the idea behind it, and I want to talk about that because I
Sure.
think it's very interesting.
Yeah,
But
no, for sure.
first, I saw on because we connected on LinkedIn, and I
Mhm.
saw on your LinkedIn bio that you did something pretty interesting last year around July. You left your 9 to 5 job after more than 20 years, right?
Yeah, it was over 20, almost 25 years. It wasn't just one 9 to 5 job. I had several, six different companies, four different industries. So I'd bounced around different jobs, sales, customer service, finance. I did some
Wow.
data analysis. Yeah, so I did a lot of different stuff before kind of finding content creation and LinkedIn and changed my life.
Wow. So you left that and you jumped into like a solo journey, like having your own business and everything by yourself?
Not right away. So I started creating content last summer, so late July last year, and that was just a side project. I had no plans to do this full time. I needed a creative outlet. So I started creating content, and after about 3 or 4 months realized I was pretty good at it and I really liked it. So I kind of wanted to figure out a way to keep doing it. And I was still working full time, and I continued doing that for another about 5 months, and then I eventually quit my 9 to 5 job in February of this year, and I've been full time. So about 4 months full time, content creating, coaching, and the podcast.
Well, I read some of your posts and I think it's going great.
So far, so good. Yeah, I've built a very nice, supportive community and network, and I try to support them back as much as I can. And that part has gone really well. I've signed some recent clients to help them with their content, so that part's going well. So yeah, it's been a really interesting and energizing journey.
Wow. Can I ask you, because I'm so curious when there is such a great shift in someone's life after, you know, so many years doing something else. So can I ask you what inspired you to, change, to do this shift?
Yeah, I worked with several career coaches over the years because I always really struggled in my 9 to 5 roles. I just never felt connected to them.
Mhm.
Even the roles I was good at, I just didn't really like them. I just felt like an outsider, like in the corporate role. Didn't never felt myself. So last summer, I was actually in the driveway with my oldest son. He's a big sports and basketball player like I was, and we were just talking about motivation and like being more aggressive on the basketball court. And I had been talking to him about this for years, and I don't know, I had like a light switched on, and I realized that in talking to him for these last few years, trying to motivate him, I was really talking to myself because I was not being aggressive for my own career. I was kind of always waiting for something to happen, right? A promotion or a different job, or I got a second degree. I was always waiting for these outside factors to kind of shift my situation, but it never did. So I realized in that moment I had to start doing something for myself. I had to create and be more aggressive. And somehow that ended up being content on LinkedIn. I don't really know why. I don't know why that was it, but that ended up being the outlet. And then that was the beginning of this journey.
Wow, an awakening.
Yeah, for sure.
You realize that you gotta, how do you say, walk the walk and talk the talk?
Yeah, definitely. I was being hypocritical because what I was asking him to do, in in his athletic career, especially on the basketball court, like I was not doing in my career. So it was very similar parallels, and I just knew in that moment I had to do something. I'd do something different. I tried a lot of different things. I've taken all the or not all, but a lot of the career personality test. And I know all that really well. And like I said, multiple career coaches, but it all helped. I read a bunch of self-help books too. But nothing really ultimately like changed my situation until I started, putting myself in the game.
Wow. What do you think was holding you back before?
I think it was a combination of fear, lack of self-belief, and I think a lot of it was like the societal programming of kind of staying in your lane. And like what I'm 48, so I was kind of raised. You go to school, you get a degree, you get a job, you stay in that job as long as you can, or you stay working for 40 or 50 years, right? You grind it out, try to save some money, 401k, take one vacation a year, and hopefully your health is good, when you're in your late 60s or early 70s when you retire, and then you can travel and that's it, right? Like that was kind of the bill of goods that I was taught, and I didn't really question it for a long time. So I think a lot of it was really trying to break out of
Mm,
that very structured
mm,
boxed thinking. And it took me a while to really like embrace it. And so now that I've done it, you look back and you're like, oh, I could have done this 10 years ago. But I think that was a big part of it. So a few factors, but I think the way that we're programmed is changing a little bit now, especially with the younger generation. I think they're starting to understand
yeah.
there's more ways to work. There isn't just a traditional, 9 to 5, 40-hour work week. So I hope it continues that way, because I think there's a lot of different ways to do it, and you don't need to be stuck. It's nothing wrong with that if that's what you like. I mean, that'll always be around. So that's totally fine. But I think for some people it just doesn't work.
Yeah, I feel you. This kind of awakening that you had, I remember it so clearly. It happened to me when I was at the end of my studies at university. I haven't even finished my studies, and I was having doubts already. Like, do
Mm.
I want to do this? Do I really want to lock myself into a 9 to 5 job that I don't even know if I like? And then luckily there was it was my mom that told me, you know what, you just finish this and then you decide. And then I still was having doubts. And so I kind of flew out. I escaped to Amsterdam for a year to kind of clear my head and try to
Yeah.
understand what I wanted to do. And then it was then, before I even started my first job, that I realized that I didn't want to follow the route of working for someone else. I really wanted to have something for myself. Didn't know what. I
Yeah.
didn't have any idea. Like you didn't have any idea that it was going to be content. For me, I was a psychologist already. I was a therapist. I didn't know,
Mhm.
right, what my future would be. And then 12 years forward, I'm here doing my thing like I wanted to do, and I'm
Yeah.
happy for that.
That's great. I'm happy that you found it, a little bit sooner. What's funny is, right, like I couldn't have created content in 1998 when I graduated from college, right? That wasn't a thing. It's changed a lot pretty quickly, once, YouTube and Facebook and obviously LinkedIn, and then, all the other social platforms. Right now, there's so many outlets to create any type of content that you want. I think that's, been a big shift in the gig economy and side hustles, and, figuring out that there's more than one way to make
Yes,
a money than just, every other week paycheck from an employer. So,
absolutely. Yeah, you're so right. What were the most difficult challenges you faced?
in starting the online business.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the biggest one was the emotional. It took me a few months to really regulate my emotions in switching away from getting that paycheck every 2 weeks, even in a job that I didn't like. You still kind of have that false security, right? You just kind of do what you're supposed to do and you get paid. Whereas, once you break free from that, and that goes away. So it took me a few months to kind of, I think, just regulate emotionally, and start to understand that, now I get paid based on the value I provide and the help I can provide clients, and I do a good job for them, and then they refer me, and then it kind of builds from there. But it's up and down, right? It's not, I don't get paid consistently. I don't sign the exact number of clients every month. So just getting used to that kind of emotional roller coaster and the financial roller coaster, I think by far has been and still is the biggest adjustment from, 20 plus years of just collecting a paycheck.
You're so right. Emotional regulation. We don't talk about this enough. The main usually when you talk or hear someone talking about entrepreneurship, they usually talk about other aspects of the thing which are important, of course.
Mm.
Emotional regulation, though, it could be professional bias because that's my area. But I can see that it's kind of something that if you have it, everything else kind of fall into place. If you know how everybody's gonna experience fear, right? Fear is a part of life. You cannot avoid it, but you can learn how to not react to it, how to respond to it in a proper way that allows you to take good decisions for yourself and not decisions that are based on an emotion that you're experiencing in that moment, which is fear. So I definitely feel you.
Yeah, I would say, like I said, it probably took 2 to 3 solid months. I don't feel it so much anymore. I think I've gotten past it and kind of used to it. So I don't spend a lot of energy,
Of
mental or
course.
otherwise, now. But in those first 2 or 3 months, though, it weighed heavily on me. 'Cause even though I was getting away from a job, I wasn't good at that job and I didn't like it. So I thought getting away from it would be this just very liberating and freeing thing. But that took a while to feel that, because then it was like, okay, yeah, I got free from that, which is good. But now I have all of this. Now I have to make this business work, and so then that was a little bit. I underestimated, I think, a little bit of that switch. But now it's fine. I don't really think about it much anymore. But it is definitely something. If someone's out there listening and you're thinking about doing it, I would recommend working as long as you can. If you have a
Mm.
consistent job while you're building, it's just easier when you don't have to make decisions based on money, and try to build it up on the side until you get. I think I've seen people talk about, half of your revenue or whatever you're making. I don't know if there's a specific number, but I think you want to prove to yourself that you can make money doing whatever it is that you're doing on the side first, like proof of concept. And then once you do that, you'll build confidence, and then that will help you. Because I hadn't signed a client prior to quitting. So when I quit in February, I had had zero clients. I'd made $0. So I mean, I felt like I was moving in the right direction, and I felt strongly about it. So I wasn't super worried, but nonetheless, like I had not proven that that people would want to work with me. I have now, so that fear's gone away. Initially, it was like,
Yeah, I know that feeling, especially when you are moved by something that you really love, right? Something that it feels authentic to you. So you know that you're doing something that moves you, that nourish you. At the same time, there is that crippling, that doubt. That doubts they say, am I gonna make it? Am I good
yeah.
enough? What helped you the most with that? How did you get over that? Just by repetition, just by keep doing it and having faith, or there was something else?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was like everything, right? Can see putting in the work, keep continuing to learn, really embracing the process, not focusing on the results, right? Like if I'd been focusing on results, which would most people would say like clients and revenue, then like I would have felt like a failure because I was not doing that. But I was building a network. I was increasing my connections and followers. I was all of that. My engagement was continuing to increase. My content was performing well. So I was trying to focus more on what was going well, which was the content, the engagement, the network. And I just kind of had to believe that ultimately that would, then translate, into clients and moving forward. I did switch. So in February, I was still considering doing more, we'll call it career coaching just for lack of a better term. So it wasn't like traditional career coaching, like resumes and job interviews. It was more kind of mindset and identifying strengths. And then in March, the coach I was working with suggested switching to coaching content because he said the way I was doing content was really unique and I was getting such high engagement with such a small follower count. He thought it would be like a better initial offering for me to start coaching people on content. So we made that switch in March, and then it took me a little bit to kind of get the wording and the feeling around kind of how I wanted to do that. And then I finally signed a couple clients in April, and then I've signed more recently. And so now I kind of feel like I've kind of dialed it in a little bit in terms of my messaging and like what I actually do and how I help people. So that was helpful. It was a little bit more streamlined approach, a little more simple or a simpler explanation in terms of coaching content versus like mindset and career. So
Yeah.
that really helped too.
Yeah. Did you have an experience in coaching people before, or was this your first time?
It was more on the side. I would, friends, family, neighbors, nothing official. Nobody had paid me, but people would come to me because I have a very analytical brain, very
Yeah.
process oriented, high observation. I'm able to take situations and process them and think through them and then provide insight. And that's just kind of what I do. So I do that naturally. So coaching, I think, is just an aspect of that. And whether it was going to be career and strengths or now content, they're very similar in terms of, if someone wants my help with content, then I'm analyzing like what are their goals, what are they doing, what does their past content look like, how can we improve it, where are the weaknesses, and then also teaching them all the things I've learned in the last year and trying to really tailor something that works for them. So that's just how I've learned. I learned the hard way. Like that's just what I'm naturally good at. So I should probably do more of it.
But I was about to ask you that, like, do you feel comfortable in, coaching people? And you said yes. So
Yeah, I
maybe
think
the
it's
call was
just
coaching.
yeah, maybe. I mean, I played sports my whole life, so I was always around. I was always, I always had coaches in all the different aspects. And then I've hired certainly coaches. I've seen therapists, which I'm obviously you're familiar with. I've done that for a long time too. So I've always had people in that kind of coaching mentor type role in my life. So it was certainly something I was familiar with. And then, switching sides and then being on the other side, I think was pretty comfortable, especially when I'm talking about things that, I feel like I know quite a bit about.
You must be very coachable, though. In my experience, I usually encounter two kinds of people: those who are not coachable. You can, but it's really difficult to find an opening, right? So they're very set in their mindset. And then there are other people who are really coachable, and usually those are the most successful because they really they absorb and they have a critical view on what they learn, what they see. And so something tells me that maybe you are a very coachable person.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. I probably more so in my later years. I don't know, as a kid, I was a little bit I don't know if I would take it as well. You think you know more when you're younger and you fight it a little bit and you kind of want to do it your way
Yeah.
until it's proven otherwise. But as I've gotten older and matured, you start to understand outside perspectives and people are trying to help, and some people know more and sometimes they know a lot more than you, about certain issues or topics. And so, leaning into their guidance and, really trying to take what they're saying and apply it. So yeah, that definitely
Definitely,
improved.
yeah. Another thing that I wanted to ask you now that you were talking, do you think that there are, since you have such a long period working before, right, and in such a vast environment, a spectrum, are there any skills that you learn in your, let's call it, for life, work life, that are transferable to what you're doing right now?
Well, I think there's a ton because, I spent so much time disgruntled, unhappy, frustrated,
Right.
depressed. So I can really relate and empathize when I see a lot of posts about that. You see a lot of posts on LinkedIn about burnout and people
Yeah.
that are just, kind of at their end when it comes to working and just everything that goes into that. So I felt that for a long time. So I understand that. So, if people come to me and they're in those situations, like it's very easy for me to, put myself in that. The other thing you too is you start to understand with the fear I was talking about earlier and keeping me in place. And now that I've moved past that, I feel like I can take anything on now. A lot of the people I work with their content, like they're not super confident in their content or they don't believe, like they want to tell a story, but they're like, oh, it won't matter or nobody cares about this. And so it's a little bit easier for me to kind of instill some confidence in them to write about it, knowing that I was in that boat too. And then
Mm.
taking that leap and pushing past it, and then you realize kind of the doors that it can open. So yeah, I think there's a lot of parallel, and I'm glad that I went through that because I think it just gives me a lot more life perspective and appreciation for what I'm doing now, which I really love after so many years of just really fighting it and feel like I was just really grinding it out.
Wow. Wow. So, is this what inspired you to create the podcast that you have, where you talk about being your true self? Is this the inspiration?
Yeah, it definitely plays a factor. So I had wanted to create a podcast for a long time, years. And again, fear and, you know, limiting beliefs and, not wanting to put myself out there. So when I started creating content after those first few months, when I really started to feel like I was gaining some traction and figuring it out, that's when I really seriously started thinking about doing the podcast. 'Cause I thought it made a lot of sense. And then, so this is like fall of last year. So as we moved into the winter of last year, into the new year, I was starting to get more serious about it and then really started to think, that I wanted to do it. So then it was like, okay, well, what's the show going to be about? What's it going to be on? And I was talking to a friend who was helping me coach. He was helping with nutrition coaching at the time. His name's Matt Freed. And we were talking about the mask that we wear.
Mm.
And he was like, this is like the third time you've talked about this. He was like, that might be your theme for your podcast. And I hadn't
Mm.
realized we had talked about it several times. So I started thinking more about that. And that really kind of tied into what I was thinking, which was, as we get older and you go through all the lived experiences, hopefully, we mature and we improve kind of all facets of our life and we get closer, and it's never a full journey. It never ends because there's no end to the learning, but we get closer to like the best version of ourselves, the truest version of ourselves, where we're not as afraid to speak
Mm.
our opinions. We're not worried about what people think. We're not being obviously like, disrespectful or anything, but like we just are who we are, and we're not for everybody, and that's totally fine. And so that's kind of the emphasis. I mean, I talk to people about all things, but we always try to tie it back to like what they've learned, and everybody has a unique journey, and you go through things. Everybody goes through all these different you know emotions and all the life, the ups and downs of life, and we try to figure out like who we really are, and we try to get closer to that, right? Each day you're trying to get a little bit closer to like who am I, what do I believe in, what do I stand for, and you stop pretending as much, right? Now society always has, there's enough societal rules that you can't always do that. Like there's just certain situations where you have to wear a certain thing or you can't say a certain thing, and that's fine. But like the majority, hopefully a majority of our time can be spent around those friends, family, partners, whatever, work, where we can just be like who we are and not really care, right, about pretending
Wow.
or being a false version.
So much time that goes out of the window, I can relate to that. I like to say that I was born and raised like a very good people pleaser. Yeah, I was also very proud of that and didn't really realize that until this episode that happened to me. I was very young, just at the beginning of my studies, and I was always, I'm not tall. I'm quite short. I'm small, and so for some reason, every one of my friends, they will always treat me like, "Ini, she's so nice, she's so sweet, she's so cute. She will never hurt me, even if I tell
Mm,
something that is not right. She's so nice." And I think I contributed to that because
mm.
I was so afraid of, let them hear my voice because, my God, they're gonna judge me. What are they gonna think about me? Really dying inside. And there was this time when one of my friends really, really did something that upset me a lot. And I was about to yell at him, and he was like, "Yeah, what are you gonna do? You're gonna
Oh
forget
wow.
about this." At first, I was so angry, and then, like a little bulb, light up, and they said, "Of course, he doesn't know me. He cannot see me because I never let my real face out." And believe it or not, I quickly realized, because at that moment I was also starting to go into psychosomatic and the relationship between emotions and how do they show up in the body. Believe it or not, I realized that anger that I was suppressing so much, not showing who I really was kind of translating into problems with my liver.
Mm.
When you become a little bit more yellow because of your liver, you have little
Yeah, yeah.
liver problems. Yeah, that was happening to me. And
Mm.
as soon as I connected the dots, I started to give myself a little bit more of permission to be myself. My liver went, it was okay. Doctors
Yeah.
will tell me, this is something that your mother has, is genetic. You're going to
Right,
have
right.
it all your life. It wasn't the case. So this to say that it's not just something that, be yourself, it's important, drop the mask. It's something that can really impact us at a very, very deep level, cellular level. We don't do anyone any favor, I think, hiding ourselves not to be judged. Because at the end of the day, just for fear to be judged, right?
Yeah, and the other thing too is, I think a lot of people they're not thinking about you as much as you think they are.
Yes.
The spotlight effect, right? Like we kind of think whether it's content or saying something, and then everybody's thinking about it like all day. Like they aren't. They're worried about themselves and what's going on in their lives, and it'll flash whatever you do or say. Just it flashes, and then they're moving. They're moving forward. You might think about it for a while. They aren't. And so you kind of have to you just kind of have to let go of that.
Yes.
And just continue to be honest and true to you, and then hopefully those around you support and respect that, and then you attract the right vibe and people.
Yes. I watched a video of some random girl the other day, and she was like, someone asked me, how did you get over the fear of being judged, right? And she said, I realized that other people, they are probably not thinking about me, and I am reacting to the image that I've built in my mind of them thinking about me, right? So in reality, I'm just projecting what I think about myself, the fears about myself into other people, and thinking that they're thinking that about me, what it's not. And so once you realize that, I think it's easy to get over it.
Yeah, for sure.
And that, what changed in your life? Like, what's the biggest change that you've seen in your life since you started to be your authentic self, to be more yourself? The biggest one.
I think it's waking up every day and being not dreading what I'm doing, because that's what I did with the corporate jobs, right? I'd really despise the Monday through Friday, whether even when I was working from home, which I liked a lot better than an office cubicle, but I still had to be tied to my laptop. I had to jump on Zooms when they told me to, and all the stuff that goes into that. And I didn't want to do it for the most part. Now I'm choosing to do it. I get on LinkedIn because I want to. I'm coaching clients because I want to. I do the podcast because I want to, right? So it all is a place of, I'm now doing it from a place of want and desire instead of, force and have to. And I think that's the biggest difference. It's just much more freeing, much more energizing, to do work that you actually care about and are choosing to do, instead of just something that's being given to you.
It's great. It's great. Someone said once, find something that you love and you will not work one day in your life. I think it was something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how true that is. I mean, I understand the point. I do a lot of work.
Yeah, of course.
I actually commented on this today in somebody's post, but it doesn't feel like work because I love it.
That's it.
But it's a ton of work. I'm doing more work now than I ever did, like in any job, and most people don't realize like how much time I spend, because there's so much, right? When you're trying to do the business, right? Your marketing and sales and content and customer service and finance, like you're doing everything. And when you're first starting out and you don't have help, or you can't afford to hire, people to do that stuff for you, then like you're it. So it's a ton of work. But yes, I appreciate the comment. I wish you would tweak it slightly, but it's a lot of work. It just doesn't feel like it. Whereas when you're doing something that you're, again, kind of forced into or you don't like, then it just, a grind was always the word I used, because that's just how it felt. Like you were just kind of forcing and slogging through activities just because that was it,
You will not grind one day in your life. That should be it. I think that's it.
You can change that.
Yes, I think this is the right interpretation of that quote. I always encounter that quote many years in my life, and I had the same observation that you are making, right? So it's not true that you don't work. If something you work, you work more because you have to do everything yourself, and you have to do the things. But it's the negative connotation of work. The work like so you're right.
Right. Yeah, it's good. Good point.
I wanted to ask you, so since you you had that experience for so many years, still you pushed through, you did it for so many years. How did you do it? What made you push through? How did you face that feeling of being burned out? Because
I've learned that I have a very high tolerance to do things that I don't want to do for a very long period of time.
Wow.
I don't know if that's good. I don't know if that's a good character trait or not, but I did it. So I mean, I had one job. I knew within 30 seconds of getting the job. It was an internal promotion too, so it was within the company, and I sat down. The woman was leaving. She was staying with the company. She was taking a different role, so they hired me to fill her role. So she was going to train me. It all made sense on paper. And I sat down 30 seconds and I knew that it was wrong. I knew that I'd made a mistake. I shouldn't have taken the job. And I did that for 18 months. I don't know. You just do it, right? A lot of times because you have to. I mean, I'm married, I have kids, mortgage, cars, right? You don't have the freedom to be like, oh, nope, I'm just out of here. So that's part of it. And then you just kind of do it. I think I always had the hope that I would eventually find a job that I liked. And then after, again, 20 plus years, and I mean, I did have some jobs I liked, don't get me wrong. Some of them I did like, but even those still didn't feel right. It was just that I was better at it. So it was a little bit more enjoyable, but I didn't really want to do it. I think just navigating through the ups and downs, kind of always having hope in the background. And that's where like the podcasts and the books I read, they gave me hope, that eventually I'd figured out. Just took me longer than most people, I think. But eventually I got there eventually.
Wow, high tolerance to things I don't like to do. I guess it's like people who have a high threshold for pain, which is okay, it's nice, but sometimes it's very dangerous because they don't really know that they are in danger. I guess as long as you're aware that you're doing something that you don't like and you're going to stop, I guess it's a good trait. It's resilience.
Yeah, I don't recommend it. I would tell anybody out there, if you know in 30 seconds it was the wrong decision, get out. Go tell the people involved, like, hey, I don't think we were on the same page here, and let's see if we can put the cat back in the bag. But
like a gut thing, or you thought very quickly, you realized very quickly, yeah, no, that's it.
a little bit of both. I won't get into the whole story. I would take up way too much time. The bottom line was it was supposed to be a financial analysis job, which is what I thought I wanted to do, but it really was they disguised it as an accounting job. So there was a ton of accounting. So I was doing journal entries and reconciliations and like all that kind of stuff. And I had zero desire to do that. And so the first thing she did was, when I sat down for the training, is she opened up a journal entry form. And I knew what it was. And I was like, why are you doing that? And she goes, oh, you're going to do 20 to 25 of these a month, every month at month end close. And I was like, I don't want to do that. Nobody ever said that. Nobody mentioned that in the interview. You didn't mention that when I talked to you, before I even interviewed for the job, about what this job entailed. I would have opened with that. I would have led with that. And nobody said anything. So I just knew right then that the role wasn't what I thought it was. And then there was the accounting part I didn't want to do. So I knew, and I was right.
Okay. Makes sense. Yep. Maybe she would open with that. Maybe she had experienced people running away, and so they should open with that. She tried another tactic.
Yeah, I don't think it was intentional or anything. It's just kind of how it happened. But whatever. It's a good story.
Nice. So, I think there's one last question that I wanted to ask. It's, you said that the most rewarding thing that you're experiencing you're a solopreneur, you do everything yourself, right? Is the freedom to do what you love, right? And we talked about the difficult parts of this journey. So if you had to point out one of the most beautiful things that you experience since you started having your own business, what would it be?
Yeah, it would be all the great people I've met all over the world. I haven't counted it in a while, but it's probably at least 60 or 70, one-on-one calls, connection type calls. And that's from people, again, spread out throughout the world. It's been so energizing, so many great, talented, smart, high achieving driven, creative people, and it just has provided me with so much hope for the future. And they're doing so many people doing so many great things and helping people, and just what they're putting out into the world, that I never would have met, right? Like, if I don't start this journey, like, I was never going to cross paths with them in the route that I was on. So that by far, has been eye opening, and just I didn't see it coming, and it's just been wonderful. And they're supportive. People I've kept in touch with, even not just a one-off call. That's been amazing.
Wow.
If I had to quit tomorrow and go back to work, it would be worth it solely for the people I've met.
Wow, this is so beautiful. And you're so right. When I started LinkedIn, I would never expect to meet so many people that were willing to exchange for real. And talking about finding your true self, I always struggled with content creation. I don't like it, especially putting myself in front of a camera and recording a video by myself or writing a post. But for the nature of my job, I've been doing this that we are doing right now for 12 years. So I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah.
But I never connected the dot that a podcast could be my way, of being out there. And so I started just for, let's try this again. And after every single interview that I do, I feel like it's not only energizing, it's something like, oh my God, I want to do this more. I want to do it tomorrow. And when you can take from that source of energy, you don't really need to motivate yourself a lot. Well, before I experienced a lot of low motivation when in the morning, and that when you have to really motivate yourself to do something. So I really agree with you on the connection part of this job. I'm a solopreneur myself. And even this little chat that we are having today, and having the chance to talk with someone that it's on the other part of the world, as an experience that is completely different from mine. It's so enriching. It's so rewarding.
No, that was beautifully said, and I totally get you. I'm the same with the podcast episodes. Like, I always find them so enriching and engaging and energizing, and it's just, I don't know. It like you talked about. It doesn't the range of emotions. It's not so much of the roller coaster, because you're more energized more consistently, so you're able to stay kind of up here instead of traditionally when I was kind of yo-yoing. So that's definitely, it's kind of smooth that out, which, like you said, it's just easier to tap into, energy reserves, resources, creativity, all that goes with it.
I think it's the element of connection. I think the podcasts are so fun because there's that element that we kind of forget that it's a pillar for us humans, as to food, shelter, water, sleeping, connection. Especially probably after all the craziness of the past years, pandemic and lockdowns and blah, blah, blah. Even just listening to podcasts of people I don't know, it's fun.
Yeah.
So sure. I completely agree, and I feel you.
Yeah, absolutely.
David, if people want to find you or want your help with something, what can you help them with, and how can they find you?
Sure. No, I appreciate that. Right now, the easiest way to find me is on LinkedIn. It's David Young. Now, there are a lot of David Young, so it's helpful if you do the common name curse. So if you do David Young, space MBA, or David Young MBA, I am the first one that pops up. So that's the easiest way to find me. I am working on a landing page. It's about half built right now. We're just trying to finalize, some of the pieces. That will be David J, as in John, Young, YOUNG.e. So that will be out hopefully in the next 2 to 3 months. And that will also have all my stuff. But right now, LinkedIn's the best. Current offering is helping people grow their LinkedIn accounts, grow their network. And I really focus on storytelling and formatting and data analysis of how your posts are doing, just to help you grow your opportunity management, increase connections, followers, just getting more people into your ecosystem, and wherever that takes you based on your goals. So that's kind of my main thing I help with right now. So I appreciate you giving me a chance to talk about that, and thank you so much for having me on the show. Super enjoyed it.
Sure, it was a pleasure. And by the way, I really love your formatting. Your posts are very neat, and I like that they are so easy and simple to follow. Just you look at them and you read them. I appreciate that very much. I love them.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's really there's an art form to that I've spent a lot of time on, and it just makes it so much easier when because we all look at a lot of content, every day, and the easier you can make it on someone, the better chance you have that they'll actually they'll actually see some of it.
Yes, I'll definitely keep following you and your feed, and I'm already learning so much.
Thank you.
Well, David, it was really a pleasure. It was lovely. Thank you again for being here.
All right, I appreciate it. Thanks, Danielle. Great talking to you.
Yes. Bye bye.